Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the Somport Deep Cut. Oregon is a region that whispers before it speaks. And maybe that's exactly why students underestimate it. No blockbuster AVAs, no sun splashed marketing machine, no single hero grape shouting for attention. Instead, Oregon gives you patience, nuance, marginality, and the quiet confidence that comes from making wine on the edge of ripeness, where every decision counts. When you study Oregon, you begin to realize that its entire identity rests on two forces: a cool maritime influence climate that almost doesn't want grapes to ripen, and a community of growers determined to make wines defined by tension, not excess. The story begins in the 1960s when a handful of idealists, led most famously by David Lett, decided that Pinot Noir belonged not in California's warmth but in Oregon's cooler northern hills. His Eyrie Vineyards Reserve Pinot Noir would later outperform Burgundy in blind competitions, and Burgundy took notice. Robert Druhan bought land in the Willamette Valley and planted a flag that still stands. That moment, Oregon proving itself to Burgundy, is still the emotional backbone of the region. Today, Oregon may be the fourth largest wine state in the US, but it behaves like a village. Most wineries produce fewer than 5,000 cases. Many own their own land. Sustainable, organic, and biodynamic certifications are woven into the culture. The industry is intimate, idealistic, and deeply collaborative. And everything begins in the Willamette Valley, Oregon's beating heart. The valley stretches 150 miles from Portland downward, a cool basin only 80 kilometers from the Pacific, with the Coast Range shielding it yet not fully protecting it. Summer days are warm and long. Oregon gets nearly an hour more daylight than Napa, but nights plunge. Rainfall is high overall, but the growing season from April through September is remarkably dry. This combination, cool, bright, and dry, is why Pinot Noir thrives here. If California's narrative is about fog, Oregon's is about wind. The Van Duzer corridor, a literal gap in the Coast Range, sucks cold marine air inland every afternoon. In sub-AVAs closest to this gap, like Van Duzer Corridor and Eola Amity Hills, the winds can be fierce enough to reduce fruit set, thicken skins, slow ripening, and build acidity. In a warm vintage, they're a blessing. In a cool one, they're a challenge. The valley soils tell a second story. Down on the valley floor, the soils are deep and fertile, remnants of ancient floods from the Columbia Gorge. Pinot Noir can grow here, but becomes vigorous, requires training systems like Scott Henry just to keep balance. These sites favor Pinot Gris and early drinking whites. But climb into the hills: Dundee Hills, Ribbon Ridge, Yamhill Carlton, Shahalem Mountains, and everything tightens. Here you can find volcanic basalt, marine sediment, and wind blown lows. Lower fertility, better drainage, and elevations up to 300 meters slow ripening and concentrate flavor. This is where the Willamette's most complex pinots emerge: red cherry, raspberry, black cherry, baking spice, sometimes that hint of underbrush and rose petal that feels uniquely Oregonian. The sub AVAs each tell their own tale. Dundee Hills feels warm and sheltered, producing generously fruited pinots shaped by iron rich volcanic clay that holds just enough water in dry summers. Ribbon Ridge is small and protected, its sedimentary soils giving concentrated ripe fruit with firm structure. Yamhill Carlton faces south, a warm bowl with free draining soils and fuller bodied pinots. Chehalem Mountains is Oregon in miniature. Many soils, many exposures, many voices. Laurelwood District carries deep lows over basalt, ripening slowly at higher elevations. Eola Amity Hills, buffeted by Van Duzer winds, is all tension and edge, some of the most energetic acid driven Pinot in the state. Even McMinnville and Tualatin Hills have distinct personalities shaped by altitude, wind exposure, and rocky, low vigor soils. One thing you notice quickly: irrigation is rare. Many growers dry farm, partly because law restricts access to river water, partly because farms are small, and partly because the soils, especially volcanic clays, retain enough moisture to sustain vines through the dry months. This dry farming culture becomes part of the region's identity, a belief that wine should reflect struggle, not abundance. Pinot Noir dominates Willamette plantings, but Oregon's other signature voice is Chardonnay, and its evolution is one of the great comeback stories of New World wine. Early California clones like Vente and Clone 108 struggled to ripen here. When Dijon clones arrived, Chardonnay finally found its balance: lemon peach, high acidity, low oak expression, whole bunch pressing, and lees aging that builds texture, and those struck match reductive notes so many modern Oregon producers embrace. Pinot Gris has long been the state's second grape. Pear, peach, medium acidity, but producers are slowly shifting towards still more Chardonnay in pursuit of elegance and longevity. Move south into southern Oregon, and the shift is immediate. The latitude drops, the climate warms, the landscape opens. This is a region defined not by marine airflow, but by mountains and valleys that create pockets of warmth moderated by cool air draining from higher elevations each morning. The Umpqua Valley is a quilt of microclimates. Pinot Noir in cooler northern pockets like Elkton, Syrah, Merlot, and Tempranillo in the warmer central and southern stretches. Further south, the Rogue Valley, including Applegate Valley, pushes ripeness even further. Altitudes up to nearly 950 meters cool specific sites, but overall, this is where Oregon becomes a red wine region: Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Tempranillo, and fuller Pinot Noir. Unlike Willamette, irrigation is essential here. The soils, marine sediment, volcanic clay, and alluvial wash require supplemental water to sustain vines in a climate where summers are hot and rainfall is scarce. Then there are multi state AVAs, each one demonstrating Oregon's connection to its neighbors. Columbia Gorge is dramatic, a 40-mile sweep along the Columbia River where the western end is cool and wet and the eastern end is warm and dry. Vineyards rise up to 600 meters, and the winds funnel through the gorge shape acid retention and flavor development. Walla Walla Valley, shared with Washington, is warm, dry, and red wine dominated: Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Syrah, with Oregon's Rocks district characterized by its basalt stones radiating heat back into the canopy. Columbia Valley crosses deeply into Washington and barely touches Oregon, but its inclusion reminds you that state lines rarely align with terroir. And through all this, Oregon remains its own world. Stricter labeling rules than California, 90% minimum for named varieties, 100% Oregon fruit for Oregon labeled wines, most wineries small and family owned, a culture defined by sustainability, restraint, and community, exports low, direct to consumer strong. Oregon teaches you to study not the headlines, but the margins: the cooling wind at 4 p.m., the clay that holds water just long enough, the basalt that forces vines deep, the extra hour of daylight that nudges flavor without pushing sugar, and the growers who insist on elegance even when vintages run warm. That is Oregon, a region that wins not by scale but by precision, not by command but by conviction. As always, you'll find the full written companion article linked to this podcast. I do hope you enjoyed listening, and I'll see you in the next Deep Cut, Washington and New York.